you can buy any house you want in your primary name. It could be your primary residence. It just depends on what loan you go get from the bank.
So I'm happy to eventually pay everyone to do everything. It's expensive, but it's still...
I'm a real estate investor. I'm sharing everything I know about Subject to in a way that complete beginners understand. This guy is John Pratt, our fearless novice, diving headfirst into the world of Subject to real estate deals. Watch as I start him on the path. I'm your guide, Kyle Kargas, and this is Subject to Real Estate Secrets, the path from moron to millionaire. Welcome to Subject to Real Estate Secrets, the path from moron to millionaire. If you're new here in real estate, a Subject to deal lets you take over a seller's mortgage payments so they can leave a property they can't afford and you get ownership without a bank. This is episode 2. John, I'm Kyle. Thanks for coming back.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Of course I'm back.
You're
we
back.
haven't left.
You're back. You haven't even left.
This is 6 minutes later after we recorded the first one.
Exactly. Like a lot of our episodes though are going to have a week or more time, real life time in between, right? Because you're going to have homework that actually requires effort and time.
So we'll get into a pace where we're like recording every week, so there will be a real week between the actual week. Okay.
There'll be actually stuff to report back on.
Sure, yeah.
Right? The nice part about the first episode, right, is what we actually definitely needed to talk about, but with the mindset part, right, we'll get into that in a second. You were already pretty solid, and you're going to be doing those things, but which I'll verify with you here.
Okay.
Jumping the gun, right? But today, this episode is going to be looking at the business as a whole. And I'm going to explain to you kind of how it's like a conveyor belt. Because in every business, you can look at it this way. So we're going to be digging into that so you can be like, okay, if you were to go and talk to a stranger and you said, what does this business look like? You would be able to at least explain the overall process or order that a lead goes through and how you actually make money.
And to be clear, it is a business. We never established that, I guess. I in the first episode, I said most people know more about real estate than I do. But there is a few things that I know, like this isn't just some side.
Yeah, you can do it on the side if you only wanted to get, one deal and done.
Yeah.
Or one deal a year or something like that. You can have a full-time job, right? And do this type of stuff. Either way, there's this process. If you're only doing one, and we'll get into this.
You should still have a entity.
You should still have an entity, and a lot of all of that we're actually going to be talking about today. It's going to be fantastic, everyone, right? So stay with us. Let's get a report on this homework. I know it's been 6 minutes, John. Tell me.
Yes, the homework from episode 1 was to maintain my mindset and grow the mindset with at minimum 15 minutes a day, around 15 or 30 minutes a day minimum, with books, podcasts, things that feed that mindset, not only for motivation, but for information, discipline, knowledge to fall back on so that my baseline goes up.
Yes, you should be growing. Your skill set should be going up. Your motivation, even peak, should be able to be stretched. And you should be able to maintain a higher level of motivation, overall on average.
So to report on that, since 6 minutes ago when we finished the last record.
How you feeling?
Good. I'm in the groove. We're chugging along. I'm still in that nest, that overall
high. You're in that high right now, right? It's finally here. It's time for you to be taking action.
Right.
And doing this. And this is what you wanted. And we're about to literally start the steps to make it come true. So, okay. Thank you for reporting. Every episode, I'm going to be asking you for a report back on your homework, right? There's going to be times where we have video of you doing your homework, etc., so people can watch, kind of see what's actually going on. And because I want them to be able to do the same thing and connect and be like, look, no, it doesn't go perfect. A lot of times you're going to get your face smashed in.
And you'll see, they'll see this.
Right.
Like I'll get my face smashed in on a certain, not literally, or I'll blow it out the water a couple times. I don't know.
Everyone's going to see it.
It's real.
It's the real deal, right? But I know, I can tell you're super excited. So, so with that said, we're going to be talking about the overall business now. Yes, you need to form an LLC.
I'm going to
write this down. Here's a question, John. Do you have to have an LLC to buy a property?
As a personal person who's going through a bank? Or no?
Okay, so no. What if it's an investment property? Do you have to have an LLC?
we're getting really nitty gritty, I'm going to say no. You don't technically...
Okay.
Because your early days, you explained in episode 1 where you would live in it, get the standard, typical FHA, loan, where I think there's a rule where if to get that funding, that lending, you have to intend to live in it for a year. Something like that. Strictly speaking, you could, but I think...
Yes, you are close, but I think the gist of everything is when you go get a primary residence as an individual, you do sign agreeing that you're going to live in there as your primary residence.
Yeah, you're not an investor. So to answer your question then, yes. Okay. As an investor, you will need an LLC.
Okay. So there's your final answer.
Okay.
Here is a slight correction. You can buy any house you want in your primary name. It could be your primary residence. It just depends on what loan you go get from the bank. So if you go get a primary residence loan, you're going to have to agree to live in there as your primary residence for a certain amount of time. A lot of times it's 2 years. After that, you could turn it into a rental if you want. And not have to change anything. It's the loan will still be in your primary. There's no LLC. So you can get a rental that way. Okay. You could also go and buy a house and have it be a rental from day one.
Yes. Without everybody knows it. The bank knows
LLC
it. Everybody.
As well.
Oh, okay.
John Pratt could go to the bank and say, I want to buy an investment property.
Okay.
Not as a company, just as John Pratt.
But they'll give me different structured lending.
Yes. You're not getting a primary residence loan.
Yeah.
You'd be getting an investor loan.
Yeah, which is unfavorable.
Yes.
Compared to...
Absolutely.
Okay.
Different terms.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the short answer. The short answer then is, do you need an LLC to buy an investment property? The answer is no.
Okay.
Do I think you should start an LLC? What do you think I would tell you, John?
You'd say yes, because you told me to and I wrote it down.
Okay,
I have to.
Good.
I'm committed already.
You're already learning.
Yeah.
I love this guy. Okay, so absolutely you should have an LLC. And the reason is you are going to be interacting with other people. I already explained in episode 1, you're going to be talking with agents.
Yeah.
Okay? There's kind of a business-to-business relationship there. If you say you're an investor, a lot of times they're just going to default to that you're buying as an LLC. And if you don't, you're going to look a little more unprofessional.
That's a strike.
It still doesn't mean you couldn't. You could just say, actually, I'm just buying in my personal name, right?
Yeah.
It just looks less professional. So on a larger scale, if you're going to be talking to them like you're at least a little bit bigger and you're going to be talking in that method, well, then you better have the LLC to back it up.
Strictly from a branding perspective.
From a branding perspective and a conversational.
Or at very least.
Exactly.
Okay. If
you just want to, and there's not necessarily a right and a wrong, you could start when you're talking just saying like, hey, look, I'm just trying to get my first one.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, sometimes it can be in your benefit, okay? But I would still have an LLC.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And part of it's psychological for you.
Scalable.
It's scalable, but also this goes back a little bit to the mindset part. If you've already formed an LLC, are you in business? If it's just John Pratt, have you started a business?
Legally?
You're actually confused a little bit mentally.
Yeah.
I mean, I bought a property and that's going to make me some money. Like I kind of did, but I didn't start an LLC. So am I actually even in business? All of us get a little bit confused with that. I want there to be no confusion, John. You are an investor. You are starting a business and you're going to run this like a business. That is the correct way to do that, and that is what we're going to be teaching you and everybody else. Okay? So you will be forming an LLC.
Okay.
The rest of what we're going to go over here real quick is going to be, what does that business look like? You have an LLC, but what? Now what?
Yeah.
Who's in the business? What process is there in the business?
The actual business, the function.
Do you need to hire 20 people tomorrow, John?
I hope not.
Okay? But a lot of times that's what people think when there's like a business, right?
Sure, okay.
Right? Can you do it all?
No.
Okay? Yes and no.
Eventually, no.
Okay? So it all depends on how big you want to go, what you want to be doing, and how fast you want to be moving, etc. So we're going to go through that today. I'm going to be going over the conveyor belt, what I call the conveyor belt. And it's like the process of how do you get a lead, where do you get it from, how does it go through which pieces, and what roles are there in your company. So with that said, John, we need a whiteboard.
We need a whiteboard.
Let's get it.
All right.
All right, John. It's like magic, right?
It's like magic. It's here now.
We now have a whiteboard. I stole this from my kid's classroom, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay. We do homeschool, and I stole this, right? So, real professional, I know. I just think a visual really helps here. This is the conveyor belt. Where do you think a lead comes from?
I thought they just come automatically without doing anything.
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
Wrong answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
I imagine a lot of places. Do you want me to like...
Tell me where you think they come from.
So talking to people, literally you could knock doors if you wanted to, I guess. Or you could scrape some sort of database, filtering for things like when they bought, maybe what their interest rate was. That'd be kind of guessing.
Okay, so all sorts of database, different things. Okay.
Yeah. Or you could cold call the people whose like MLS has expired, like been on there for like 90 days or more, because that would tell me, based on, again, when they bought it, that would tell me why it's not selling.
Okay.
Like, so but that's the end of my brain dump. I don't know anything.
Well, that's actually very, very good.
Okay.
Okay. So what I wrote here was contacts. You have to get contacts somehow. Step one is you got to have a name, a phone number, and there would need to be a property. Contacts, right? Or a list.
These are people who know me, people who I know.
Nope.
No?
Nope.
Okay.
These people don't know you.
Okay, I'll shut up.
This is literally just a list of contacts of people's information. You actually said, oh, there could be a database that is scraped and people's information is pulled. You also listed MLS. Those would be expired listings. Expired listing could be this list. Could be this contact. Are these leads yet?
They don't even know who I am.
No, they don't know who you are. No. This is not a lead. This is just a contact.
Yeah.
It is just a person. There's millions and millions of people, right? So first, I'm gonna write right here, admin, okay? This would be an admin part of the business because, well, where does that come from? It doesn't just show up, right? You have to, whether it be you or somebody else, they have to go get a list. Every business has to have that, right? Now, sometimes if you had like a street front property and that was your business, people like walk down the sidewalk and come in, your contacts or list would be walk-ins.
Foot traffic,
Foot traffic, right? That doesn't actually mean that they're actually a buyer of your product.
Yeah.
Right? Or in our case, we were looking for sellers, but we're buying that, right? But it's flip-flop there. But we need to know who we're buying from. Next, a lead. What do you think the difference is?
I'm just thinking overall, getting over the flip-flop thing, because when I think of lead, I think someone who's potentially could give me money in exchange for, but this is, like you said, it's the other way. I'm giving them money because there's always a market on the other side. Let me go back to your question, which I totally forgot. What is a lead?
What's the difference here? Contact versus a list and a lead.
So there's been communication, I imagine. There's some sort of qualifier between contacts and when they become a lead, it's when I call them, I guess, or when there's first contact.
Exactly. So you have to have somebody here that is contacting somebody here. Yeah. Once you get in contact, you're going to have some basic questions.
Is there any qualifier or just that I've initiated some sort of thing?
Great question.
Like what sticks, if there's a contact pool of 3,000 people, I don't know, 100 people, I don't know. I call the first one. Why do I call that one? Because what's fresh about that one? I don't know.
Sure.
Maybe we'll go into that later.
We'll go into that later.
Okay.
The nice part is there's going to be a filter on that list. So everyone on that list, you're going to be reaching out to. One not necessarily better than the other. You're not going to worry about that. You're just going to make sure it's on the list or it's not. So that's the list or part. Now we're on to the lead. Now if there's 3,000 people on this list, what actually makes it a lead? Well, you're going to reach out some way. Here, you have to have some sort of acquisition person that helps on acquisition.
They're acquiring the lead.
They're gonna help you acquire. Okay, this person could be a cold caller, could be a texter, sending out text messages. This part could be you could be sending mail. There's different methods to contact the lead. But part of your acquisition team, someone has to reach out to your contacts, and once you talk to them, they're going to find out if they're a lead or not. You said something kind of important, and we're not going to go too far into it, but there's going to be a certain requirement what makes a lead. Just because you talk to them doesn't make it a lead, John. When it comes to cash deals, which we're not doing, there's usually 4 pillars. They're like, oh, you have to ask for the price. You need to find out motivation. You need to find out how quick they want to sell. There's like a list, there's check boxes that make a lead. However they reach out, this first person is doing these contacts and then it's a lead.
So they'll DQ them or qualify them depending.
Correct. Okay. Now, when it comes to creative, to just give one other example, this would be, say in my business, right? I have one of my cold callers calling a direct-to-agent list of properties for sale. Let's say it's not expired. Let's go with it's been on the market for 90 days.
Okay.
And it's been
when does it expire?
Okay.
Is there a day?
Generally 6 months is your
Got it.
typical
Okay.
contract term. It could vary a little bit, but generally six months. So say 90 days in, it's not expired yet, but it's been on there for a little while. The seller might be a little more motivated. So you call that list. You've already filtered the list. Now you're calling it and you're having a conversation with that agent, and you're going to have certain check boxes where you're like asking questions. And maybe that's, hey, are you open to creative? Is your seller open? You know, it's been 90 days. Are they even open to this idea?
Creative finance.
Creative
for
finance.
Our audience.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Subject to type of
Okay.
thing. And most of the time I wouldn't recommend, and I'll teach you this, not using the word subject to, because they won't even know what that means.
They don't know what it means. Yeah.
Okay?
I barely know what that means.
So we'll
yeah.
talk about that later, right? But still, the point just being, you're going to have a conversation and make sure certain check boxes are checked. And if it is during that short conversation, it's a lead. So now, when you do this job, it goes from being a contact, it becomes, through the arrow, becomes a lead. Now it's a lead. Let's say they said, yeah, I'm open to creative. I'm open to a subject to offer somehow. Someone is going to have to talk to them again. You're going to need to do like a discovery call. Because here, you got the basics. Okay, they're open to creative, but what do I need? I need to know more about the property, right? At least with creative finance, and we won't go too far into it either, I need to know the numbers, right? If I'm gonna take over a mortgage, do I wanna take over a mortgage at 25% interest?
No.
No, that doesn't really exist, John. But you get the point, right?
Yeah.
I need to know more information. And I need to have this conversation because I also wanna make sure it's a good fit for the seller. If you're actually
Yes.
not solving a problem and it's not the best fit, you don't wanna do it.
Yeah, because the best case scenario is it'll go south later in the deal.
Exactly.
Bang
You're
your belt.
trying to basically eliminate things, right? But here's the other reason. If you do good by people, things work out. You should always
Oh,
be
sure, yeah,
you should
yeah.
always be in alignment with what other people's goals are.
Yeah.
So when someone talks to me and they say, "Hey, yeah, I'm open to it, but I need this much money." They have equity, and I'm like, "Okay, well, let's just talk real right now. I can't give you that much of your cash at the closing table. Let's have that conversation now, and let's figure it out rather than."
Yeah.
Going
Here's
through.
when they say, yes, they're okay with it, but they
Yes.
might learn more and be like, no, I'm
Exactly.
not okay with it.
This could be like a lead manager. That's just at least one person. Now, I'll ask you another question here in a minute. But okay, so you understand the discovery call section.
Yes.
You're asking more questions, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, some sales is also happening here. You're discovering more information, but you're also setting the stage, right, and letting them know how we work, etc. And so having some sales skills here, right, can come in very, very highly. Now you have all the information. Do you think every property is a deal, John?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Well, good, because the next step is underwriting. That's a big word, John.
It's a big word. It's a big city word. Not
Right?
from the big city.
What do you think underwriting is?
You have to, generally, I don't know what it means, but people talk about underwriting in the sense of like, okay, does it make sense for the money part? Like underwriting a loan. Does
Yes.
it make sense for us to lend money? Does the math add up?
Bingo.
all I
Bingo.
know.
Yep. And you hear it all the time when it comes to banks when they're
Yeah.
trying to see if someone qualifies. They have a discovery call. Guess what,
Oh, yeah.
John?
Yeah.
A bank is a business. They're trying to get you somehow. You become a lead. They do a discovery call, and then they have to underwrite you and make sure that you actually make enough money to buy that house, right? So here we got underwriting. You need to underwrite the deal of taking the information, all the information that was here, and you're going to make sure that the math makes sense. Sometimes the math doesn't make sense with what you wanted to do as like a long-term rental. Well, now what? Does that mean you can't buy it?
No, because there's other ways to leverage the
Because there's
property.
always other ways. You could do a long-term rental, a short-term rental, right? Like Airbnb.
Yeah.
Right? You could do an insurance rental. There's all sorts of stuff that you can do
Like
with
for
properties.
restoration, like temporary housing
Yep.
for restoration.
Temporary,
project? Okay.
exactly. A family's house floods.
Okay.
They need to go live somewhere else
But
while
the
their
insurance
house gets fixed.
has to rent it. This is going deep, I guess. The insurance has to rent it regardless of occupation, right? Because it has to be available to the insurance.
As a landlord, you could let these insurance company know that the house that you have is available for them to choose from.
And they keep it on available.
And you can keep it in their database. Yep.
Okay,
And
good.
then they just reach out when they know someone in the area.
Okay. Is there a transaction if there's a property that I have that I'm renting to insurance? Okay. And they say, okay, keep it available for me. Is that a thing? Or do they only care about it when it's filled?
Correct. They only call when there's a specific client. Okay. And then in fact, the clients usually even go by the property because there might be 3 or 4 houses that they're looking at and they'll choose one. Okay. Okay. So it's only, yes.
But to suffice it to say, there's multiple strategies. It doesn't have to just be
exactly. That's the point here. Okay. The point is there's multiple strategies. You're going to underwrite the deal and be like, what is this viable for? How many options is it viable for?
If I'm using all my own money, I'm underwriting my own deal.
Yes.